Welcome to this week's Archives of Warcraft, the series where we look at features in dungeons from vanilla times that don't do anything anymore, but are still there anyway, just to explain what the purpose of them was in the original forms of these dungeons. This week we're going to look at Razorfen Downs, the second part of the Razorfen set. If you want to see last week's, or indeed any of the videos in the series, then click on the link there with the video, and that will take you to the library for it. And the first thing to note is that although you were sent into Razorfen Crawl to defeat the end boss who seemed to be aligning the Quillboar with the Scourge, in Razorfen Downs the Scourge have a very strong foothold, but we mustn't forget that it is still an area of Quillboars and they are dedicated to Agamagan, hence the boar-shaped head to the entrance. So when changes were made to dungeons so that you picked up all the quests in those dungeons when looking for dungeon, just automatically queuing up for them, became the norm. Of course, now we get all our quests for this place in from Koristrasse, the dragon at the start, who wasn't there to begin with, didn't play a feature. Of course, originally, like with most dungeons in vanilla, you would pick up your quests all around the world, including from this NPC just outside Razorfen Downs to this day, who doesn't, of course, offer you a quest anymore, but is still there. In essence, the dungeon runs much as it did. You begin by going down the left-hand side, if that's the side you choose to go, and of course it should be, where you'll be fighting Quillboar and spiders, and then creeping amounts of Scourge will appear, and if you go down the right-hand side, or as you get towards the end of the instance, it will become exclusively Undead and Scourge. Now, this particular area here with the altar, in the original one, you would probably come back to it unless you'd completed the quest associated with it. There was an escort quest here, probably tying in with the fact that there are a lot of spiders in the area, and with the Scourge elements there are Azjol Nerubians. And when you come to the first boss, in the instance as it is now, there is a gong that you click on and an Azjol Nerubian appears, the boss appears. At the time the gong was still there, you can see it's actually got lots of webbing everywhere. It wasn't like this before. I think it's trying to show the age, the time that has passed since we were in here in vanilla times, the several years that has passed, because there wasn't quite as much spiderwebs there. Our way was not blocked off. There were two ways into this, the way we came in and the way you would go out. And when you rang the gong originally, first of all, a load of spiders would appear from both ways. You'd have to gather up because, of course, you'd get minced otherwise. And then when you'd cleared those spiders away, you'd ring the gong again, and another set of Azjol Nerubians would come in. They'd be elites. Again, you'd want to gather in the middle so that the tank could grab them because they'd come in from both entrances. And then finally you'd ring it again, and then the boss would come in. And the boss was actually a simpler affair because at least there was only one of them. The tank just had to grab it. It's now interesting to note that you don't really get Azjol Nerubians in the instance. Even the boss is just a big spider boss. And I'm not quite sure about the reason for that, whether it's related to the fall of the Lich King or what, but I did sort of notice that myself, and I am a little curious. I'm not sure whether there's been any official word on why they would have just replaced them with spiders, even though there's still Scourge in here. Why not Azjol Nerubians as well? So into the murder pens. This is what this area is. There's nothing there now. It's just mobs. There's a couple of chests, but there is nothing else there. At the time, there were two very interesting features that were quite unique. First of all, there was a chef who was trapped there by the name of Henry Stern. And if you had high enough cooking, then he would teach you the... Oh my god, it's a gnome. Oh, apologies for this. This was the best image I could have. I don't have screenshots myself from the time. Oh, should we fix that? Yes, I know what to do. There we go. That should sort it out. Okay. And he would teach you the Goldthorn tea recipe, which was just a drink that you could cook. And it works much like any other drink. It would restore mana over time while you were drinking it. Then there was another NPC who was locked away in there, who was like a dragon, but in their usual humanoid form. And he would tell you that that altar that we went back to before was actually a place where the Quillboar sacrifice victims. I think it's sort of formed part of a bit of cannibalism, in fact. So what you do is you take part in an escort quest, and oh my god, was it annoying. Escort quests were largely annoying anyway, but when they involved groups, this one was like the most annoying form, because what would happen is you'd have to talk to him first of all, and you'd sort of get a quest and then turn it in back. One of those quests where you just have to listen to him rabbiting on. And then you'd get another quest where he would go to the altar, you would have to defend him while he basically destroyed the altar and lots of mobs would spawn in, you'd have to fight them. And you got a nice quest reward at the end of it, I suppose. The problem was that, you know how these things work, it still works like this now. You need everyone to be on the same step of the quest. And then if someone takes the quest on an escort quest, it asks everyone else in the group if they want to do it. But the problem was, of course, if one person raced through all the clicking on the questions and speaking to the person, they would get the quest before other people had done like the pre-quest, which just involved listening to him. So it was very antisocial. The usual procedure in this place was for everyone to kick off and to allow the person who'd done this to wander off on their own. Go, so, okay, you think you can solo it, can you? You go off and do that then. And then we'd wait for them all to die and for the thing to reset, and then just say to the person, now, do you want to wait this time for us all to be ready? But yes, it was so annoying. At least they don't do things like that anymore. But the actual, quest itself, it wasn't a very long way, and it was interesting enough in itself as well. But you would only do it if you hadn't done the quest. There was no, as far as I recall, there was no loot that dropped off during the encounter. It was purely there as a quest, and if everyone in the group had done that quest, then there would be no point in doing it anymore. Just as a completely unrelated aside, I couldn't help noticing the chests and thinking, well, we get sort of chests now for treasure and stuff like that. We've had that in WoD, and we're going to get it in Legion. And given that they can have artifact power, stuff like that, and wouldn't it be nice if chests came back into the game? And people who haven't been playing for a few, or who have only played the last few expansions, rather, and weren't playing from these older ones, probably really not all that familiar with them. But they were a nice little feature. It's like some of them would be unlocked and everyone would be able to get it. Some of them would be locked and you'd only be able to open them if you had a rogue or a blacksmith with the key, or maybe an engineer with the charges you could get to blow them open. And it was really good. It was a really exciting feature, really. It was like a mini boss. Oh, it might be a really nice item, and it might be a blue quality, or sometimes even an epic quality item in it. Mostly, of course, it wasn't. It was just some green and some trash, and maybe you get some health potions or mana potions. I mean, they were always welcome as well. Yeah, it would be nice if they came back in. And here's Mordresh One Eye, of course. He's the same as he was at the time. There's no change here, but I'll show him anyway because we all like a boss who knows how to handle an axe. And once you've come to this point, whether it was in the original dungeon or the version now, you're very much into Scourge territory, and it's all sort of Scourgy from here on in. And the next boss you would sort of come to now is this Mushlump, who uses a model from like Icecrown Citadel from Wrath Times. At the time, there was an abomination called Glutton. Now, I'm not entirely sure why they replaced the boss. I mean, maybe it's just because they have made this dungeon look like a passage of time has gone on. So they've made sure that all the bosses, apart from the very last one, are all very different. Or maybe they just wanted to update a model, so rather than like the original abomination model, they want the sort of newer versions. I don't know. But it drops the same thing. It has the same basic loot table, or in terms of the more desirable bits of loot that Glutton originally would drop. And then from here on in the instance, it's very similar. There are a couple of bosses not in that were in, like Quillbore ones. There's an extra sort of one in at the end. Before you get to the very final boss, there's a Quillbore called Blackthorn now, who was not there at the time. It was just into the last boss, the Coldbringer. And now we have this thing where the dragon comes in and takes his phylactery away, presumably to stop him coming back. I think the idea is we killed him the first time, but of course he's a leech, and he came back, and so we're basically, the dragon's come in to say, right, actually, if you kill him again, he's just going to come back again, so do you know what? I'm going to take his phylactery away and stop him doing that. And that's Razorfen Downs. That is some of the features that are still sort of, you see little bits of them. They don't really do anything anymore now. Hopefully you found it interesting. If you remember from the time, hopefully it's brought back a few interesting memories. My most abiding memory is the fact that in this dungeon, it was the first dungeon to drop plate, because if you're watching this when Legion's live, of course, it's all completely different, because Paladins, Warriors are going to be using plate from level 1. But at the time and up to now, at the point I put this video out, you wear mail, and then at level 40 you get to wear plate. So there's no plate gear up to level 40. So this one dropped a plate item. I think it was a plate helm, actually. It might have been the first plate helm. And it never used to drop it on my Paladin. It used to drop it like every time on my Mage and Rogue when I was leveling those up. Never. It even dropped one on one of the Warriors I had before I deleted it. But it would not drop on my Paladin. I ran this 3 or 4 times on my Paladin before I out-leveled it and just went on to pastures new. Would never drop. And it was a fair old trek here for Alliance as well, let me tell you. Of course, it's very close for Horde, very close to Orgrimmar. But if you're Alliance, it was a hell of a trek to get here. I was really determined to get that plate hat. Never did. But anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And share it with people who you might think be interested as well. In terms of the series, there's another 3 dungeons I intend to do. I'm not intending to do absolutely every dungeon, but there's 3 more. And then I'm going to be going into raids, at which time it might come out every 2 weeks rather than 1 week. But we'll see when we get there. So until next time, I'll see you later.